Hello and welcome to another episode of Wellness with EAC. My name is Nicole Guanzura and I have the distinct pleasure of being your host. I am so excited every time I get together with y'all every week now. It seems like every Wednesday we come together and we talk about topics that surround wellness at work, and we sprinkle our faith journeys in the midst of that as well. I love talking about how you're managing your finances, bringing guests on who talk about that, how you're considering your mental well-being and bringing guests on that talk about that as well. And we talk about your professional development journey, things that you've been through in life, because at the end of the day, we are all humans. And one of the things I love about having a podcast platform is I get to dig into the issues and conversations that matter to you at work and life. And I get to bring in guests that talk about that side, because so often you look on social media, you make a lot of assumptions, and we all know, or if you don't know, social media is not always what it seems. We make so many assumptions about people and their backgrounds and how they got there overnight because they're so successful, or because of that title, they deserve to be on some kind of pedestal. And then sometimes what that does is gives us something to strive for, or oftentimes what it does, it makes us feel ill-equipped and not enough for where our journeys are taking us and where we've been assigned to go. So I love episodes like this because I get to bring on guests. And I will tell you, anytime I bring on a guest, it's someone I have pre-vetted, someone I believe in, someone who I really appreciate their work, their atmosphere and their environment. And I really want to make sure that anybody you're talking to or listening to, when you reach out to them, the same energy they're giving on the podcast is the same energy they're going to give to you when you have questions about their journey, or maybe you're swapping notes about where you want to go. Today's guest is no different. I am so excited to bring you today Tino Manyika. He is an absolutely excellent human, and you're going to hear a little bit more about him. He's going to tell you about himself. However, I want to brag about him a little bit. I want to tell you some really fun facts that he may not say out loud, but I made sure to ask him so I could brag about him. So him and his wife have been on, so if you're in the UK, first of all, let me shout out that we have gone international. Let's just take a pause there. We have gone international. So my guest is not just only awesome, but he is also coming to you from the United Kingdom tonight.
Yes.
So UK in the building, we're going international, and I'm excited. So if you have ever watched Channel 4, and in 2020 you were watching Couples Come Dine With Me, you probably saw his face. If he's looking familiar, because him and his wife were on the show. So local celebrity in the building for so many reasons. And that's just one of them. Not even the only reason he's a local celebrity. That's just one of them. And one of the things that's also cool about Tino is that he is someone who really specializes in taking lead and bringing teams together, bringing people together, taking things in a typical work environment that may be just at their bare bones, and he can pioneer that and bring that together into a structure that makes sense, into a team that is cohesive. And that is one of his superpowers, just one of them. And then the other fun fact, and I'm sure it's going to come out in the interview, you're going to feel the sense, he is one of my favorite, if not my favorite, MC out in this entire world. So you may see him on social media as well as MCT host, and he's been in the game for a minute. He has been talking to folks, hyping folks up, encouraging folks, hosting events, because when you're an MC, you're doing a whole lot of everything. But he does it really well. And people have brought him over 1,000 times. Over 1,000 times. That zero has cousins. over 1,000 times. And he's done that for corporations, for charities, for weddings, for parties. And one of his favorites, destination weddings. And if you go on his socials, you'll see exactly why I mean destination weddings. So that's just a little bit about him. You haven't even heard the full bio, but I just wanted to brag on my guest really quickly. So, Tino, welcome to the show. I am so happy you're here.
Oh, thank you so much, Nicole. I've been looking forward to coming on this platform and, have this conversation with you. Wellness and well-being is something which is really quite an important part of my life, whether it's in the work environment or whether it's in social or in family life. It's something which comes as a very important area for me, and it's something which just exudes out of me, and I think it's a very important topic. So I'm so happy to be here on your show, on your podcast, all the way from the United Kingdom in Essex. So yeah, no, it's good to see you. Thank you for inviting me.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. And so my husband and I got to go to the UK this summer. And,
Yes.
when we met up, I was like, you know what? I need him on the show. He's doing some amazing things. So I'm so glad, even though that we sealed the deal then over the summer, and then now getting together, syncing our schedules to make this happen. So take us behind the scenes. Who is Tino?
Wow. Where do I start? So let me put myself into a couple of buckets. So Tino is a son. Tino is a husband. Tino is a dad of two boys. Once upon a time, they were this much high, but now they are this tall. And what am I? I'm a leader. I work in social care. And above everything, faith is very important to me. And I've got my very beautiful wife. I'm a husband to my beautiful wife, Petronella. And that's just a snippet of me. I could go on and on. I live in the UK. I've lived in the UK for over 25, almost 25 years now. This has become home. I'm originally from Zimbabwe, and that's where I grew up. Came here in my 20s, and I've just started to really live. I've enjoyed every part of that. I've remained in touch with my roots. I'm a firm believer of identifying and remaining in touch with who you are, but also, engaging new opportunities, which is part and parcel of the reason why, I moved to this country. And not just, I've been to multiple countries around the world during that time. So yeah, I work in social care. I work in leadership and in management, as you said. Currently, I'm working in local government. That's where I've been working since 2018. But I've been working in social care for over 10 years. That's the day job, as it were. The roof over the head for the past 10 years.
That is absolutely excellent. And we're going to talk about the 5 to 9 after the 9 to 5. We're definitely going to get into that. But thank you for sharing a bit of your background. I think it's so important for people to just get to know a little bit more and just see the journey which you're coming from. And I think as a fellow Zimbabwean, it's so important to stick to our culture and roots because that's what makes us who we are. That is something that really grounds us. And then I think our faith as well, I believe our faith as well, then gives us that centering point. And then that's what makes us uniquely awesome in the work that we do, in the roles that we play in life. So I really appreciate you just really, talking about that. And so when I think about your, when you think about your current season in life, right? When you're just reflecting, maybe even on the last 6 months to a year, what would you say you are most proud of?
Wow, that is a very pertinent question, and thank you for asking that. I think for me, I've been a person who is not afraid of change over my life. I started living away from home when I was still young, and I went to boarding school, and I was from throughout my high school years, and moved away from home in my late teens. I think I was 19 when I moved away from home, when I finished high school, and I went to college, and then ended up working away from home. So going into new environments, it's something which is part of my DNA, and this is something which I really enjoy. So in my current role, I started working for local government. All my life, I'd worked in the private sector. I'd never worked for government agencies or worked in local government. So it was a big leap for me. And what it did, I'd been working in senior management in the private sector, in social care, and then an opportunity came. Actually, I was headhunted by an employment agency for my local council of South End Sea, which is the city council I work for, and joined. But because I had not worked in that sector before, I went from my senior management position to start at a lower level.
Yeah.
And there I was, after having worked for about 5 years in management. I was a regular folk. But one thing which really is pertinent about myself is that one of the important values which I was taught by my parents was that an effective leader is basically an effective servant. In order for you to be effective as a leader, you must be someone who's willing to serve. So I do not shy away from challenges. So for about 3-4 years, I was really at that level. But 2 years ago, there was a big change within our directorate. We had a new leadership which came in, and one interesting story is I was overseeing a portfolio of work which normally was being looked after by 2 people. And that new manager came in and they said, "Hold on, I don't understand. Why is it that you're holding this portfolio?" But I was like, well, this is what the previous manager was saying. So within a few months, they had made arrangements and said, look, we really need the work which you're doing. It really is beyond the level which you're actually designated on. So fast forward to the last year, I've had the opportunity to actually even move forward from being a senior in 2022, and then I went into being a manager in 2022, and last year, actually, in 2023. And as recent as September, I went into a senior management role, which is back exactly where I've been before. But the biggest achievement for me has not so much been the title or the position. The amount of transformational work which I've done with the team. Literally, when I came into the team which I joined, there was just 4 staff. We've grown that team to be a total of more than 20 people within the entire team, with middle managers underneath my level. And it's been such a blessing. It's been such a privilege to be part of that journey of coming in on a very small team which had small responsibilities, to then have people who have joined the team, and we have put in the processes to ensure that we are serving the community. Because when you're working in local government, it's all about meeting the needs of the residents and working in line for making sure people are living good lives and all the services they require. So that's been the biggest achievement. So I've gone from working at an officer level to being a service manager now, which is working just underneath the head of service, and that's been an amazing achievement for me. And that's something which, when I joined, I thought there is no way it's probably going to take me 10 years to get where I think I should be. But by the grace of God, and by having the right people who absolutely see your value, and people who appreciate the hard work which you put in, the opportunity came, and here I am. So it's been an amazing, and the impact which the team has made. I work with a very fantastic team. They're so committed. I'm just the tip of the iceberg. They're the engine.
That is incredible. I mean, there's so many nuggets there, but I think one of the things that really stands out to me is you're exemplifying, right, that excellence in action, the wellness in action, that the motivation for you is to serve the residents, is to support their well-being and their needs. But the result that ends up coming to you is then that growth and leadership, that recognition from the team around you. And so when God is shining that favor on you, as he's a God of order, he's seeing you in the preparedness. He's seeing that your faith is paired with the works. And you're rewarded for that. So congratulations to you. That is a big, big deal. And for you to be able to recognize and humble yourself enough to realize, hey, I need to switch areas. I need to switch industries. And that's going to mean I need to do something different.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's taken a lot of, going back to the drawing board and stripping back things and saying, look, I need to learn. In order for you, if you're making those kind of moves, you have to be someone who's inquisitive.
Yeah.
You must be someone who is able to say, okay, I'm at a position where I do not have a lot of knowledge. And so I've had to go back to do some qualifications. I've had to go back, and sit down alongside people who've worked. I've had to seek guidance from mentors and people who I have conversations with and say, look, how am I supposed to do this? But one thing which I think is important about the whole being in a work environment is just trying to treat people as you would like to be treated. I think that's one thing which I've said. I always say to people, of all the managers which I've had in my working career, which spans over, 20 years, 30 years almost, is you learn more from managers who probably don't treat you well. And that's one of the things which I always sit down and reflect when I'm having interactions with my teams and my colleagues within my team. I'm like, am I treating them the way I would like to be treated?
Mm-hmm.
Because we spend a lot of hours, 8 hours, 12 hours, when things are busy in our places of work. So it's an area which we should ensure that it is a people are really feeling comfortable and being considerate and taking into account that it's not just a person in a chair in front of a computer or whatever job they're doing. It's a human being. So you need to actually make sure that they're well. And that's something which I really pride myself on and really enjoy doing.
That is excellent, because when people are leaving jobs, they're usually leaving a bad manager. They're trying to escape that manager who has made them miserable, that manager who doesn't understand, hey, emergencies happen and I've got to go pick up my child from school, or maybe I'm a caregiver for a family member, or maybe their dog is sick. Who knows? Whoever and whatever is important.
Yes, absolutely. So, it's any effective organization, the biggest resource to any enterprise, to any organization is the people behind it. And if you find people within the teams and within the organizations and look at them as an integral, part of that team, and that they are human, they will have, instead of just using the organizational KPIs, look at people as individuals. What is that person's KPI? What are they interested? What keeps them going? If they're having a bad day, what is actually going? The more you show interest in people, the more people are productive and deliver. And that's one thing which I've seen across all the sectors which I've previously worked in. Making sure people are well.
A lot about your growth and, these things that you're proud of, and some really amazing growth and accomplishments that you have done, things that you've been able to go back and improve on. Now, as you're reflecting, I'm going to ask another reflection question. So now, as you're reflecting on your journey, right, over these last 20 some odd years, going almost on decades, is there something you would do differently in your professional journey?
I think one thing I would do differently is making sure when you are having that sense of the imposter syndrome, the thing is, especially if you're a person who enjoys new environments and new challenges, you tend to always second guess yourself. Especially when you're working in a sector where you've previously not worked, which is a natural part.
Right.
I think one thing the first manager or my first manager who really said, look, you're working beyond what you're supposed to be delivering. And the challenge which you have is you don't celebrate your wins, you don't celebrate how good you actually are. You play down everything. And if there's anything I would change is making sure that I'm celebrating my wins. That's in being humble. But at the same time, if you're working in the corporate world, it's a very challenging, there's so much competition, there's, limited opportunities, and you really have to understand your value, your worth, and be able to say, this is me.
Right.
I can do this. I did this. So if there's anything I would have changed in my working career is to celebrate my wins, and not in a boastful, but so much in a, yes, I am good enough. I deserve to be here. This is my moment. If you put in the work, which I've done most of the time, and to actually believe in yourself, because that imposter syndrome is one of the things which in some opportunities which I've had, it's taken me long to actually think, well, I belong. I'm here. I've earned my wings to be here. So therefore, don't second guess yourself, especially when you've got transferable skills. Like I was saying to you earlier on, I've worked in different sectors. There's certain core skills and certain core values which are universal, no matter which sector you're working in.
Right.
And those are the foundations of having that confidence in believing that I've learned this, I've mastered this. I should celebrate myself, and I should recognize myself and pat yourself on the back. People might not do that for you, but that's one thing I would definitely change if I were to go back to a younger Tino and say, come on, stand on there and say, I did this.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So often, I think part of it is cultural, right? We're not taught in our culture to stand on that and brag about something you're doing. You're not taught, especially if it's something that you're accomplishing and either you're a junior at work or, you're in a position where you could potentially disrespect the elder in your environment. You could potentially overshadow someone. Culturally, it's just not what we do as Africans, as Zimbabweans. There's this sense of just work really, really hard and be known for your hard work, not necessarily for these big accomplishments and achievements. And so part of that now, I think when we go to the diaspora and then you work really hard and folks will love that you work hard. But if you don't recognize and waiting for somebody to say, good job, and you're always waiting for that, you're forever going to be at the mercy of somebody else's comments. You're always going to be at the mercy of, but did I do a good enough job for them?
Yes.
Instead of, did I do a good enough job to represent the work I'm doing, who I am, whose I am, and how does that impact me? How does this impact my family? How does this impact where I'm going? And then using that, I think on a very practical side, taking all of those skills, taking those accomplishments, because when you transition, which you're going to need to transition to another role, all of those things are going to have to matter. When you have to come to the table and prove to the next recruiter, prove to the next person, I am qualified for this based off of X, Y, and Z. You're not going to go and say, dear boss, can you come and help me figure out if I'm good enough for this job I'm about to leave you for? No.
Definitely. No, you won't. You definitely won't. Yeah. No, it's really, it's that self-validation and builds that confidence because, when working in very much cutthroat environments, opportunities don't come, rationalizing operations and all that is a fundamental part of corporate objectives. So you really have to be ready for those opportunities, and being able to sell yourself and believing in yourself is part and parcel of doing that in any organization, whether it be in private sector, local government, or in NGOs or charity organizations. Yeah.
Absolutely. So in that same token, right? Let's talk about your 5 to 9, or
Okay.
5 until the party stops. That takes a lot of confidence. That takes an entrepreneurial spirit. That takes a lot of, in the beginning, probably, there's moments where we were talking about this before we started recording. There's the moments
Yes.
where you're doing this earlier, and maybe you're being tapped for it, for opportunities at school or different organizations.
Yes.
And then there's the growth that comes of that you continue to craft your skill. You continue to take the experiences that you've had. Can you
Yes.
just talk about, one, how MCT host came to be, right? And two, you've been in the game and you've stayed in the game, and it seems like you are unstoppable. How?
Well, it's really, I think the fundamental point of all this, like I was saying to you in the summer when we met, it all started, the seedlings of this is in my high school years. I was someone naturally who was an introvert, but always had people around me who recognized my ability to hold my own, as it were. Because there's two types of people. When you're introverted, people think that you're weak and you're not able to hold your own. You can't stand in front of people. You can't organize or have a presence. But this is the thing. I was quite a unique species in that, although I was introverted, I could hold my own. I was a grounded person, and I believed in what I did. So when it came to any opportunities which I did have, mainly through sporting activities which we did at school, whether it be basketball, whether it be rugby, whether it be being involved in fundraising activities at school, the extracurriculum activities, that ethos which was embedded in me by my parents of being a servant always raises you to the top, because you
Right.
don't shy away from the hard work, and people expect and recognize that. So within the systems at school, I ended up being exposed to events. There's all this fundraising, the charity balls, and so that's where it started. And obviously, because I grew up in church, and every so often you're standing in front of people, so this is something which I grew up around my family, at home, and my extended family. We church and serving God and being amongst people has always been a part of our journey. So standing in front of people is something which I did since I was young. I never thought coming, once I came to the United Kingdom, and when I met my wife, that was the turning point of everything. For me, this is something, because I did this for a long time when I was young. I never looked at it as if it's a kind of an enterprise or a business. So she's the one who's like, hold on, why aren't you doing this as an enterprise? I was like, what do you mean? I was like, you're so good at it, and the impact, how you do it so naturally. And yet people tend to think just because you're good at something, you don't have that element of always double checking and thinking, am I actually delivering up to the standards? Because you're always looking at other people and thinking, oh, they're doing it better. They're always doing it better.
Of course,
So we
yeah.
set it up, it was all, thank goodness, to social media. That's the time we were in, Facebook, Instagram. That's where it really went. It slowed down a bit in 2020 with the pandemic, but I pivoted. I used the opportunity, because I've been doing it for like 5 years. I never was an on-screen person. I was always the live. I love interacting with people. I love the energy which I get from people. I love, going into a room, reading it, and transforming the atmosphere in there. But on camera, it was completely different. And I challenged myself, and I said, hold on, this is the reality of the world. And I literally, with my sons, who are the IT experts, set the cameras up, bought the lights, and used the phone, not a lot of equipment, and did my first, non-live in 2020. And that's where Tino Talks started, and this is something which I'm still working on and developing it, because I'm so much involved in the live events. I still need to structure, the non-live side. But I did that, and that's where it grew. Because going from just being word of mouth, when it went on social media, I started doing a lot of talks, a lot of live streams. And during 2020 and 2021, a lot more people got to see and to hear about me. And that's when it really took off. And it's mainly just about the fact that in another life, when I finished high school, I was working in services industry. So it's been a culmination of, I used to work in tourism. I went after high school, went and trained to work in tourism. I was working with people. I've always worked around services industry. So for me, engaging with people, it was a coming together of all those things, that personality and having been exposed at school. And then having the right partner, my wife saying, wait, you could do this. And, from there, everything just took off. So I really, really enjoy being around people having fun. That's really the way I look at it. People, it's now ended up being an enterprise. But I enjoy to see that smile, the gratification of people, whether they're there for fundraising for a corporate, whether they're there for their wedding, whether they're there celebrating a birthday, whatever the occasion is, I'm actually having more fun. And that's where it's grown. So, the 5 till 9, that's how it's literally grown. It's grown out of who I am. And being a person who's happy to engage with different people, and it's something which I also learned as a young person, that you got to tap into different people and just, make yourself known and make yourself present. So that's how that's grown.
The power of self-advocacy, and an excellent wife. Excellent wife.
In front. They say behind, but I say in front.
In front, absolutely. And I love what you said too. I mean, there are a couple of things. One, being able to do things and have your family involved in one way or another. There's something about it too, because it takes time, right? There's weekends that you're doing. Events are typically on weekends, unless maybe it's a corporate event that it might be a weekday evening. Maybe it might be something during the day, but most likely there's some weekends that you're having to give up. And one of the things that you shared with me before we started recording, which I thought was really awesome in terms of even just well-being, that you're not doing this all year round. You have boundaries around when you're doing this.
Absolutely. And one of the biggest boundaries for the 5 to 9, and also even during the 9 to 5, is the ability to say no. It's okay to say no. You're not hurting anyone. You are protecting yourself. You're protecting your well-being mentally, physically, maintaining the relationships of how you recuperate and how you regenerate, putting aside time to interact with your loved ones, putting aside time to interact with yourself. It's such an important thing. I really focus my working day. I mainly work remotely and hybrid. We go into the office sometimes. We're working from home. And you have to be very intentional about making sure you put boundaries for yourself. And making sure that, when the interesting events are coming, especially during the summer periods when people have a lot of events, I just have a rule that I will not do more than 3 events in a month. Because I just have time to spend with myself, to spend time with my family, and to recuperate. Like you said, normally, a lot of people think events only happen for the 3 hours, 6 or 4 hours or 6 hours when you're there. Events normally start. There's a lot of prep work which goes into events. The best events which come out is all the planning, the having conversations, understanding the visions of the client, of the person, what it is that their brief is, and then mastering it, researching it. And then you get to the actual day where you travel. So I travel across the United Kingdom. So I can, the most I've done is like an 8-hour drive to an event, gone up to Scotland from England. Of course, I overnight there and then come back. But there's a 10-hour drive, or an 8-hour drive back. All that takes a toll.
Yes.
So if you're a person who is not able to say, thank you, but no thanks, I'm taking a break, and politely do that, you will crash and burn. And it's something which I've been very deliberate, especially when the brand is growing and quality is there. And also one thing which I noticed, especially after the pandemic, people really take time to want to go and celebrate and enjoy life. You know, normally it was the 21st birthday, the 40th birthday, the 50th birthday, the milestones. People now have, I'm turning 35, I want to have a birthday party. So there's a lot more events happening, and people want to celebrate life. So you can really get ahead of yourself. So saying no is something which is very good for your well-being, and in the workplace as well. If you know that you're sitting on a lot, communicate, upwardly, and tell, your superiors that, look, I'm actually sitting on a lot, because a lot of, burnout comes from not being able to say, you know what, I'm really sitting on a lot, especially coming from cultures like ourselves where it's almost disrespectful, or you're vying and you're trying to, be visible and accomplish another project and finish another task. You could find yourself sitting on more. But one thing you should always know, when you're not there and you've crashed and burned, you're going to find someone. So you will not be any use to yourself. You'll not be effective to the organization you're working to. So saying no is a very important, word to be able to use.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is so powerful, saying no. And if you find yourself, it's easier sometimes said than done. But when you do say no, like you said, you're not hurting anyone. And if there is somebody that's still not allowing you to say no, just know that that person, whatever they're trying to inflict, it's an issue. It's a them problem. It's not a you problem. They are projecting typically whatever issues that are happening with them. It's out of what you can control is your no and walking away. And if you've got to vent, call somebody or do something, but don't let that person intimidate you, bully you, make you feel less than because you needed to set a boundary. It's usually a projection of whatever they're going through that most of the times has nothing to do with you.
Definitely. And just being comfortable, with that, because that's the beginning, the times where people find they've got a lot on their plate is when they're just thinking they have to eventually, just like with the balloon, the more pressure you put in it, eventually it's gonna pop. So you have to find places, ways of, getting the pressure out of the system. And part of that pressure management is saying, you know what, I would really love to help, but I don't have the capacity to help at this moment. And people will respect you for that.
Right.
People will genuinely respect if you communicate that effectively, and if you demonstrate and your work ethos is right. People do really respect that if you're working with people who don't have issues like you were saying projecting onto you. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I think that's excellent advice. And it really tapped into my next question around what wellness means, right? To you. And you're talking about those boundaries. You're talking about that ability to say no, setting boundaries at home, because that balloon would explode, or sometimes it just deflates and it implodes into you. And neither one of them is great at all. And so, Tino, I think you've just done such an excellent job in this conversation of really just, I feel encouraged in terms of where I need to step up even my own self-advocacy as a full-time entrepreneur, full-time mom, full-time wife.
Yes.
There's so many roles that I went into entrepreneurship because I wanted a little bit more freedom in the work that I was doing and time to spend with my kids while they are still yay high before they become, big tall kids like where your kids are. They're grown men now.
Yeah, definitely.
And so I really wanted that flexibility, but I found myself starting to get trapped in this. I have to get this done. I have to take care of this. But you do that only for so long until your 6-year-old says, hey, I need you to work less.
Yes. And once it gets to that part, it's reached a stage where some changes and adjustments or reprioritizing needs to happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I really appreciate that. And just, the leadership that you've brought to the table. You were able to encourage folks who are working 9 to 5 and trying to find harmony with their life and their work, and those who are doing a 5 to 9. Some folks, it's a side hustle in some way. Some it's just really figuring out where their passion lies and executing that. And so I really, again, just appreciate the way that you've done that so excellently. And we could absolutely go on, but I really want to be able to give folks an opportunity to further connect with you. Maybe somebody really resonated with this conversation, and, maybe he's been trying to take the leap of like, how do I do it? How do I advocate for myself? And what does life look like?
Yes.
And I think there's going to be a few of those folks. So how can people stay in touch with you?
So I'm available on all platforms. So let's start off with LinkedIn. So LinkedIn, Tino Manyika. If you look me up on there. And for events, the main channel I use is mainly Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
On there, I'm at MCT host. So that's at MCTEE, then host, HOST. On Facebook, I'm on as Tino MCT host, and I'm also on TikTok as at MCT host. So TikTok is an area which I've really been driving forward, because it's where a lot is happening on TikTok. So I'm also on TikTok, and on YouTube, it's MCT host there as well. You can find me on there. And if it's an email, I've got two. I've got tmanyika at hotmail.com. So that is my initial, my surname, and then at hotmail.com, or mcthost@gmail.com. And if you reach me out on there, you'll definitely get hold of me. And my phone numbers and my other contact details are available on all those platforms. And if you're in the United Kingdom, if you're down in Essex, come down to Southend-on-Sea. I've been living in Southend or around. I'm living just outside Southend-on-Sea now, but I've lived around Southend-on-Sea, for more than 20 years. So if you just go around and say Tino works at the council, someone will know.
Someone will know. They will know. Well, those are somebody, is going to know something and be able to get in touch with you. And you've shared so many excellent ways. So someone can never say, I didn't know how to get in touch with you. And I will also make sure that all of these links are in the show notes, so that they can just click to right where they need to go. And of course, with this podcast, I don't know where you're listening to it from. Maybe you're on YouTube and you're seeing Tino and I right now. Hey, you're seeing us visually, or maybe you've got us on the road with you on Spotify, or, on Apple Podcasts, or you could be iHeartRadio, who knows? And we've gone global, so who knows where it's going to be picked up. Listen notes. So whichever platform you're on, please leave a comment, leave a review. Let us know what you thought of the episode. And I'll be really, really curious to hear what your favorite part of the episode was, or where you really resonate with Tino, or maybe something that, just triggered a response for you. I would love to learn more about that. And as for me, you'll see me again next Wednesday. And as for Tino, you're going to see him on all those platforms. If you have not been there, you need to run to his platforms, because there's some good stuff. So Tino, thank you so, so much again. I am so grateful you graced us with your international presence.
Thank you so much, Nicole. It's been amazing to hook up with our neighbors from across the pond.
Yes.
And, no, it's good. Thank you so much for providing me the opportunity. And I hope next time you're down this way. In fact, no, it's on me now. Coming down to stateside.
It's time. I see on social media you and your amazing wife and family. You're traipsing all around the world. So if you could go to Bali, you can come to the United
Oh,
States.
for sure.
Just
Oh,
saying.
for sure. I'll just wait for the elections to finish and then I'll come.
Okay. You know what? Come on down to DC. We'll be waiting post-election.
Thank you so
I
much.
appreciate you. Thank you so much. Take care, everybody.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, everyone. Have a good time.